Excellent. Excellent. Well done. And we are live. Johan, I'm just going to do a backup recording. All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, lovies, we are going to quickly dip into understanding persona development and empathy mapping a little bit better after that story. So I'm just going to share screen with you. Just confirm with me, you are seeing my screen, right?
Yeah,
all right. Fantastic. So we are going to look at, what is a persona? Why do we create personas? What's the role that personas play and the type of personas? And Marley and I will share with you some of our experience there. So we've determined that we're all human in this room, but we might not all be the customer. All right. So just moving away from the assumption that, everything that's true for you is true for anyone else. So a persona is really a fictional person that we create. And sometimes we create it based on the real people. When the TV programs come up and people say none of the characters in this program is real, they're all fictional. Sometimes when we engage with customers in customer co-design groups, because I fundamentally believe you cannot call yourself employee or customer-centric unless you ask the customer or the employee. So sometimes we get inspired in these co-design sessions and we model the persona on a real person. So this a character that you see here is modeled on a real employee. An employee, you can see that's just an ordinary human being, and then she's turned into a brand warrior there. And that really helps us to keep it alive and keep it human. So, I believe that great products and services get made when people who make them care about the people who use them. And I love this quote from Ben Ralph. That means that during every meeting, when making a decision, in every design and with every interaction, you should be thinking about the customer. So often when we create a persona, this really helps us care more so that we can design better. So it helps you understand the needs, the experience, the behaviors, and the goals of the customer. It helps you recognize that different people have different needs. All right. So if you think about, a first-time bank account holder, all right, versus someone who's been with a bank for 20 years, that's a very different persona there. All right. I vividly remember when, my bank, I opened accounts for my kids, and the bank cards came in a little box. And when I'm going to tell you what was on the box, you'll know the bank. So there was a baby zebra on the box, and they opened these boxes that felt like it's an iPhone box, and they took out their card, and there was a baby zebra on the card. I doubt that my kids would want to bank with any other bank, because that's their first recollection of, this amazing account. And they believe the app for this bank was built for kids, and it's a very different app to the one that I get. And, they've got these savings pockets and savings wallets, and my kids are just, and they love logging onto the banking app and checking out, whether I've paid their pocket money. So we need to also look at kind of the different personas, but not go like overboard. I mean, some companies engage with us and they've got, 50 personas, and they go, okay, which one should we start with? And I go, oh, that's like you've over-engineered the personas. The context within which Brand Love uses personas is very much to get in touch with the human being and not to segment and not to market. So it helps us to really identify with the customer and then get into the shoes of that customer. And that's why we love using these vivid images. Okay, so our goal is empathy, to really empathize with the customer, because empathizing with them helps us to solve problems for them. Now, you would have potentially had a look at Brené Brown's work, and she says empathy is connecting with the emotion someone's experienced, not the events or the circumstances. All right, so we really want to connect with that emotion, and we want to design for that emotion. So, important when we get to the journey mapping and journey design piece tomorrow, we're going to set a target emotion that you want to reach. All right. So you want to say, listen, I want my customer to feel confident. Now, how do you build confidence into an experience? How do you take someone from uncertainty to confidence, to potentially from disappointment to delight? All right. So it's about designing for that emotional target that we're going to set. All right. So how you then use these personas once you have them is to create alignment inside the organization so that people can tell stories about these personas. This is an opportunity to bring them into the journey and create a journey for them. And it's to shift the focus away from the abstract and get very specific. All right. So we said the 2 reasons why people change, you remember? From Monday, 2 reasons why people change: pain or pleasure. They move away from pain, they move to the pleasure. All right. So if we can create empathy and create a story around our persona that's either associated with, hey, they're experiencing pain, or we want to have them experience pleasure, then we can move our journeys towards achieving that goal for the persona, not for ourselves. If we keep on focusing on the brand's targets, the brand's objectives, then you will continue looking at the customer through the lens of your product, through the lens of your service, and it will remain a transactional experience. And that you cannot compete on, because the transaction is a transaction. Whether I swipe my card with bank A, bank B, or bank C, a card swipe is a card swipe. But if I swipe my card, like I did a few days ago, I got an email from my bank saying, we're worried this might be a fraudulent transaction. Just reply to this and we will unblock this transaction. I replied and said, thank you for looking after me. This is a legitimate transaction. And I got an email back from a human being saying, thank you, Chantel, for confirming with us. Now, that made an impression on me because I've got more than one bank card in my wallet. And I can tell you, there's only one bank card that has that result, that created that experience for me to actually feel safe and not annoyed. All right. So that is how we move from the transactional. All right. So what we said, it's not a breakdown of a target market or a segmentation used for marketing. It's not assumption free. So we're going to make some assumptions when you go into your persona development. And it's not done with a one size fits all mindset. All right. So we develop these personas, and without over engineering it, there is room for multiple personas. Let's say we've got, like you're going to have later today, an interaction between, let's say, a call center agent and a customer, and they need to call in a specialist. Or it's an intermediated business where there's potentially a broker involved. Then we want to create different personas for those different roles. And we want to empathize with each of them, all right? Because the call center agent might have her own issues, all right? Cinderella, she also gets her period and sometimes her boyfriend breaks up with her. So we need to get real about these personas. Brenda, I see you smiling. Okay, so these are a few examples of personas. So you see there a marketing persona, you see a design-based persona, and then we love doing these images, all right? So we have an illustrator and we love just for him to make these images real of these personas. We also work with emotional ranges so that, you know, we can see, is someone happy, are they unhappy? And we really identify with these personas. So if there's any questions about personas, I think I'm going to ask you to put them in the chat so long. And then when we get to the end of the session, we can just deal with all of the questions. All right, fantastic. So I'm going to move on to empathy mapping. So these are two tools that you've got in your arsenal. First of all, defining the persona, creating a little story around that persona. Who is it? Where do they come from? What is their name? You know, where do they live? You know, what are their hobbies? What are the devices they use? What are the brands they love? So you can literally package anything into that persona. And then the more important, the one that really packs a punch is the empathy map. So here we want to get just a deeper understanding around the behavior. All right. So if you look at what is someone saying, what are they doing, what are they feeling, and what are they thinking? And I might tell a little story here. Let me just see what content we've got. And yeah, so let's just look at what is an empathy map. So it's a collaborative visualization used to articulate what we know about a particular type of user. And I'm going to show you a few formats. It externalizes the knowledge about users in order to create an understanding of their needs and aid in decision making. All right. So why we empathy map? Again, it brings the person to life. It helps us imagine the issues they're dealing with. It identifies the thoughts, feelings, actions, fears, challenges, and needs. And it defines the questions that we want answers for. All right. So a little bit later, you're going to be working a lot with assumptions. You know, what are some of the assumptions you're making? What are some of the questions you want answered? And you know how do we get to what's behind the behavior, and how do we get to what's the human needs? And if you can solve a problem for someone, you will win the heart and the mind of that person. So we really want to hone in and understand what is the real problem. All right. And in that example I gave you earlier, the real problem was not buying a new top. It was a confidence problem. All right. And my confidence problem was solved through a variety of things, not just, hey, here's a new top. All right. So what I want to maybe share with you is just around the story. So, you know, a lot of people look at experiences, they ask customers about their experience, but the memory of the experience sometimes is not revealed. All right. So there's a story that happens inside of the person. And some of you might have heard this story before. So like my grandpa, he told me the same story over and over again. And every time I just look surprised, and I'm so glad, you know, years after he passed on, that I heard some stories 100 times. So if you've heard the story before, just imagine you haven't. You just put a facial expression on that tells me you haven't heard it before. So if I look at, you know, my typical, I told you I don't like shopping, and grocery shopping is a killer for me. I hate grocery stores. They are sensory overload. I would do everything online, and I do that mostly. But if I look at, you know, my typical interaction with a grocery store, I only go when I absolutely have to. And usually it's when Johan's not at home. You know, I would pick the kids up, get home, and realize there's no bread and milk. So that's really where my journey starts. Then I go to the grocery store, but first it's a fight getting the 3 kids in the car, safety belts on. We drive there, we get to the parking. In the parking lot, I see a car that's much nicer than me, and I call this persona gym mom. She slides out of the car wearing great gym clothes. She's probably size 32, 34, beautiful makeup on, but she's just come from the gym, which doesn't completely make sense. But in this process of going to the grocery store, a lot of stuff is packed into this experience. And the experience is happening inside of me. So now I'm comparing cars, I'm comparing butts, I'm looking at gym clothes, I'm looking at makeup. I'm hoping that my kids don't embarrass me in the store. I go into the store, and by aisle 3, I tell my kids, I brought you into this world. I promise I will take you out unless you keep your hands in the trolley. Don't ask me for anything. We just need bread and milk, because I'm heading to the back of the store. Left-hand corner is where the bread and milk is, because that's how they've architected that store. They haven't architected it for mothers with children. All right. So in this empathy map, if you did an empathy map and really understood the internal narrative, it is my fight to remain a good mother in the store. It's my fight to feel that I've got a grip on my household, that I've got some sense of control over what's happening in the house, and that I absolutely hate this experience. Now, when Pick n Pay asks me, Chantel, how was your recent trip to the grocery store? I'm probably going to tell them it's fine. I'm probably not going to tell them that I felt like that I'm not good enough. I don't have a grip on this. All right. So what's important is understanding the story behind the story. And sometimes we do need to make some assumptions. All right. So you are going to spend some time getting into the customer's shoes. You are going to walk around the block with the customers. And I want to just quickly go to, I want to show you a few of the templates, and just allow me quickly to get to the templates. All right, so just for a moment, I just want to show you a few empathy mapping templates. Excellent. So let me just reshare my screen again, and I'm going to take you through those templates. All right. So these are empathy mapping templates that you might have seen. Before. This one focuses very much on what is the customer seeing? What are they doing? What are they saying? What are they hearing? What are they thinking and feeling? And what is the pains and the gains that they're having? This is another very simplified version of an empathy map. This is one that we often use, where we look at what are the challenges, what are the fears, what are the emotions they're feeling, what are the needs, and what are the jobs they're trying to get done. This is another simplified one. You can see they kind of all have a very similar structure. This one focuses on feelings, tasks, what's influencing this person, what's the pain points, what's the overall goal. So here you can see, what are some of the decisions they need to make, what's happening, what are their fears, what are their needs. So I would suggest that once you go away from this program, that you actually go and define, your own empathy map template. What are the things that you really want to capture in this empathy map? All right. So let me quickly just check in with Marley. Marley, is there anything I might have missed? Anything you want to add in terms of empathy mapping?
Yeah, Chantal, when I look at the questions in the chat, it feels like people are a little bit concerned or not sure what the difference is between like market segmentation and a persona and the difference. So I think